Welcome to The Talk, live on Talk TV, the home of straight talking. I'm Sharon Osbourne, and it's great to be back on your screens, and even greater to be employed. Now, it's our first show tonight, and it's going to be fabulous, isn't it, darling?
Completely fabulous, Mrs. O. Delighted to have you on. Welcome back to the country. I'm Jeremy Kyle, and tonight we're talking about the breaking news that Elon Musk has reached a deal to buy Twitter just now for more than £34 billion. The Angela Rayner sexism row rolls on, and we'll debate the woke world of Disney. You try saying that. Now, joining us on the panel, our political commentator Esther Kraku, journalist JJ Anisiobi, and on my left, columnist Nicola Thorpe. OK, let's get into our first story tonight. With the Queen's Platinum Jubilee just weeks away, Her Majesty's celebration should be taking centre stage. But it is, I'm afraid, the behaviour of other members of the royal family that continues to overshadow this historic event. Now, I reckon if the firm were an actual company, they'd be having a strategic review right now. I think HR would have words with Prince Andrew about inappropriate behaviour.
He lunged towards me, to which point I turned to my left and ran along the corridor and then up the stairs that I'd used before to the attic. I screamed for a split second because, you know, it was a natural reaction.
Unbelievable. Public relations will be working overtime to resolve the bad reviews of Harry and Meghan.
The only thing I disagree with the Queen on, probably one of the only things ever, is that I think she should have said, if that's your choice, fine, but you no longer have titles, you no longer... And frankly, don't come around. He has been so disrespectful to the country, and I think he's an embarrassment.
Wow. Marketing would want to adapt to the changing global market, and I reckon finance would analyse whether the entire operation needs to be slimmed down. So, the big question tonight, can Britain's best-known brand restore its reputation? Sharon, you manage the family business with an iron rod. So here's the point. What would you tell her, Madge? How does she get them back on the straight and narrow?
I don't know whether she can right now. I mean, it's gone so far. I think that Andrew is an utter disgrace to the royal family. I think that he should be locked up in the tower and they should throw the key away. And as far as Harry and Meghan go, they wanted to leave, which is their choice, you know, absolutely fine. And when they left, all they did was talk about the royal family, how he felt, you know, Harry felt sorry for his dad and his brother and all this other stuff that, you know, was totally inappropriate to tell the public, I felt. And now he wants back in. And it's like, are you in or are you out? And you can't have it all. And now I feel that he wants to come and be back here for the Platinum Jubilee because he wants that picture taken on the balcony. Because that picture, for him to be part of the Jubilee, is huge press for him and his wife. And I must say, they run a business. They've got millions from Spotify, from Netflix, Fix, everything, whatever it's called. They make money wherever they go. And so the thing is, they constantly have to stay in the public eye. So everything they do evolves around the royal family. You know what? That's great. Move on from them.
I never thought that I would actually agree with an entire segment that Donald Trump spoke.
Oh, God.
I absolutely agree they should lose their titles. And like you, Mrs. O, you know, if you're going to leave something, leave. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Just don't go to America, sign a deal for $115 million and then arrive back in England with a camera crew. I think that... I had somebody the other day on the radio saying to me, you know what, I'm not in any way a royalist, but I love the Queen. And for me... this is about when the Queen has gone, I think the monarchy's in trouble. I think that she transcends all the arguments. I think she is this incredible woman, and I think the public will be less enthusiastic about the royal family in its entirety. My old man worked for the Queen Mother for nearly 40 years, and he always talked about mystique, OK? He always used to say that actually we didn't really know. The younger generation are everywhere, and I just think, for me, more than anything... the disrespect that Harry and Meghan and Andrew have shown this lady after all she's done is appalling. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not too worried about Harry and Meghan with regard to how they affect the royal family, because quite frankly, like you were saying, they're only a big deal kind of in America, and eventually they will become has-beens.
That's true.
I'm not really worried. Even Prince Andrew, I think, lock him up in the tower. He can be forgotten, right? He can be.
He's disposable.
Exactly. My concern is Prince Charles, actually, because I feel like I don't feel like the public has enough faith in him and how he will lead the royal family. And because, you were saying there's always been this mystique around the royal family. And I think the Queen has guarded that quite well. But the issue is Prince Charles has always dabbled in sort of political speech, right? For the last 20-odd years, we've been hearing him talk about environmental policy and all of these things. I don't trust that he can be as impartial as he should be as the monarch. And I think if the public can't have faith in the monarch, especially after the Queen, I don't really think Harry and Meghan are not really...
She's made an entire career, hasn't she, of saying very little and not washing any dirty linen in public. Just, Mrs O, back to you. Have you ever had to bring the Osborne clan together and with an iron fist, not a rod this time, have you had to bring them all into shape and put your foot down?
Every week. It's an ongoing thing. It's like a Sunday lunch. Every week.
Regards to Charles, I think it's time for him just to abdicate. Okay, when the Queen walks away from the role, let's get William in. Let's get a nice young king that the whole country can get behind. Because I think that's part of the problem. Now, like as you said, the Queen, fantastic leader.
Yeah.
Charles, okay, maybe, but William, that's going to get all the young people in the country behind the royal family.
I think that's fine, but I have a degree of sympathy for Charles in that if you are born to know that's your job and you spend, 70 years waiting for your mother to die, which is in essence what he's doing, if he speaks out, he's apparently interfering, and if he says nothing, then what's he doing? So I do think it's difficult. That'll never happen.
No, and I think he'll do a good job, JJ. I think he will be fabulous.
But
I do.
I'm with JJ in that the royal family, if they're going to save the brand, the firm, they need to be appealing to the younger generation.
Yeah.
I have to disagree with you guys that I love Harry and Meghan. And I think that the fact, I know, Jeremy, I know. I think the fact that the way that they've been treated by the royal family, they've been sort of, I think that they've really made a huge mistake in not keeping Harry and Meghan closer. They've missed out on a huge opportunity. Harry and Meghan are still very popular with millennials.
And so, I get it, as they were to everybody when they first got together. The whole country was in love with them. The world was in love with them. But they left too soon. They didn't give it long enough. If they'd have really stuck to it, given it their all, I think everything would be absolutely fine.
But I think what appeals to young people nowadays, particularly across the pond, is people who stand up for what they believe is right. Now, whether or not we agree with what happened. I think what will happen with younger generations and people around the globe will be, here is a man and his wife who stood up against an institution. Now, whether or not you think that's right or wrong, I think young people will identify with that.
You can stand up against an institution. My point is, don't then use that institution to pay
make
for your
money.
living.
I understand, but hey, they haven't invited themselves to the balcony. They haven't said whether they're going to be there or not. Shouldn't we respect the Queen's wishes in wanting her grandson to be there?
I think Harry and Meghan have cheapened the royal family a little bit with their actions.
Not a little bit.
Yes, they have. Thank you.
See the older generation over here.
Thank you.
All right, my friends, we'll move on. And coming up next, Angela Rayner has hit out at sexism and misogyny nearly in Westminster. And the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has backed her. We're discussing next if women have it tougher than men. Oh, yeah. This is Talk Live on Talk TV. We're coming back in 3. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Now, Labour's Angela Rayner has slammed sexist and misogynistic claims that she tries to distract Boris Johnson in the Commons by crossing and uncrossing her legs like Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. She's received support from both sides of the House, but our very own Piers Morgan thinks it's not just a problem for women in politics.
Honestly, I think it's been slightly overblown, the whole thing. I think Angela Rayner's a tough cookie. I think that she can perfectly handle herself on this. But men get scrutinised exactly the same way. There's just a complete double standard, in my opinion, about the way this all gets treated. I think that male politicians, from Boris to Donald Trump to others, Macron with his hair, you called him hairy this morning.
Yeah, he did.
So
He's
I think we are very
Macron.
easy to objectify the way that male politicians look. The
Oh, Piers. Sharon, what do you think? Do men have it tougher when it comes to their looks?
No, of course not. Piers, please. No, I don't think they do at all. And but I do think that if I was Angela, is it?
Yes.
Angela, yes.
Yes. Well, Angela, I think that you ought to be very, very flattered that they said like Sharon Stone, because I think that she's the sexiest woman on earth, so it's quite fabulous in a way. As really,
I might. Well, yes, I suppose you could say that. I think I might shock you with my response to this. I think that Angela Rayner. I wouldn't agree with much that comes out of Angela Rayner's mouth politically, but I will say this: I think that she's done an incredible job to get to where she is, her northern route. She's a grandmother. She's worked her way up. But no, she is at 41. She is. I'm a grandfather. Thanks for that. I think she resonates. I think she's taken on the old boys network. And I think Starmer lacks any charisma at all. I think Angela Rayner, as she's proven at Prime Minister's Question Times, took on Boris quite well. Yeah. I just think it's... I think it's her taking on the old boys network. You can imagine them being quite wound up about Northern Woman who's on from the bench, can't you? You can.
Like you're wound up about me being on this panel.
yes.
What do you mean? Yes, you're on my side. I told you.
No, I agree with you, Jeremy. That is.
You agree with me?
I completely agree with you. You know we're all right. Look, I think that Angela's only crime here was doing her job and sitting whilst doing her job. She's been overly sexualised. I would agree that, men like Boris Johnson get criticised the way they look, Donald Trump, etc. But it's never in a sexualised manner.
Deserve it.
That's it.
Come on.
Get a comb.
Angela did not deserve this. I think it speaks to the sexism that runs throughout Westminster, both in politics and in journalism. I thought it was interesting that the Speaker of the House, Lindsay Hoyle, called in the editor to talk about this story, saying that it shouldn't have been run.
Bit dangerous, that, though.
Well, at the same time, there are 56 MPs in Parliament who are facing allegations of sexual misconduct. So what are the priorities here? I do think it was a terrible story to have run. However,
are they all men?
We don't know, but maybe we do. Look, if I can see the story here, I understand papers want to get people talking, but the real story is surely that there's a pervy Tory chatting to a journalist in the Commons bar saying, guess what Angela Rayner's up to, and making it up.
Am I the only one that sees the irony that a party that can't even define what a woman is now up in arms about this misogyny row? I just think it's incredible. I was asking, have the Labour Party decided to settle on what a woman is now? But I think the bigger issue here is this is something that's exclusively, I personally think it's only seen in politics, really, because I think in the real world, men actually have it really, really hard.
Quite right.
I think celebrating women's bodies is a lot more popular outside of the world of politics than in real life than it is sort of in this arena. For example, what is the sort of male equivalent for the body positivity movement? It doesn't exist, right? Look at all the memes of Tyson Fury after he won about his body because he's, quite frankly, shaped like a tooth.
But where's the equivalent of a man in politics being accused of using his sexuality to win over voters? OK, we had Macron, you get him.
Yeah,
got his chest out.
But that's what I'm saying. Politics is different from real life. Men in the real world don't actually have it really, really hard when it comes to their appearances because there's no such thing as body positivity for men. Because there's no such grace, right?
Look at him.
I mean, it's true. I mean, that is horrific, honestly. He needs a lawnmower on his chest.
I like it.
In politics specifically, I think it's fair to say that women have it much worse. Clearly.
Okay,
yeah. Do you remember Tracy Bradburn, the Labour MP? She went in with a little black dress on. It slipped off her shoulder.
Yeah,
she was trolled mercilessly. And the reason she was leaning is because she had a broken ankle. So she had to lean over. But, a man will never get that kind of scrutiny.
But is it all bad? Like, look at, do you remember the memes of Priti Patel being, when, what rapper was it that shared that picture of Priti? Skepta. And we were all saying we have the hottest Home Secretary. Now, we don't agree with her on most things, but I don't think it's necessarily always a bad thing. Is it terrible to tell a woman she's attractive? Is that sexism now?
No, I'm not saying it is, but I think women in politics have it tougher 100% than men.
Yeah.
See, we agree.
We're just sitting here very quietly as Oldens, aren't we?
No,
Just listening to
I totally agree.
How many times are women used as, kind of as decoration in the eyes of people? And I find it really interesting that there's no politician, no male politician who's been told that he's there because he's sexy.
They're not attractive male politicians. What, can you name 5 attractive male politicians?
It wasn't that long
That's
ago.
a secret list.
See?
It wasn't long ago, was it?
I can.
Okay.
Go on.
Putin, when he was on the back of that horse, bare-chested, he looked insane.
He is insane.
He's insane. Look at
There he is. The muscles
But
from
look, we can't deny that there's an overwhelming amount of pressure for women to look a certain way, i.e. sexualised, and it doesn't happen with men. Our skirts are too short or too long, or our buttons aren't done up enough or done enough.
Okay.
I'm
Our
with you.
hair's not right,
But
you know.
Dishy Rishi, was that we're calling him? What was that?
I call him Fishy Rishi now.
Dishy Rishi. Everyone was saying how gorgeous the Chancellor was. Like, so.
Who's everyone?
Oh, dear. Right, listen, thank you very much indeed. We're moving on now. Now, a shocking video has emerged online appearing to show a black teenager being stopped and searched whilst handcuffed so tightly he's bleeding. This clip, filmed in November, was shared as part of a campaign against the controversial police power. It follows the revelation that another black schoolboy was stopped by officers more than 60 times in just 2 years. The police watchdog has urged forces to overhaul the measure, but it's important. 23% of stop and searches lead to either arrest, caution or summons to attend court. And nearly 4,500 weapons were taken off the streets in London in a year because of stop and search. So the big question, with knife crime such a huge issue in our cities, I want to ask if there's a place for stop and search. And JJ, we've talked about this privately, and I wanted to bring this to the table tonight because... tell this story, because this, I think, would lay out how black teenagers are targeted.
Yeah, I mean, I've been stopped and searched more than several times. I think I was 13 when I first got stopped and searched by a police officer, and it was terrifying. It's humiliating and embarrassing. But when I was a teenager getting stopped and searched, I don't know what the rules are. I didn't know at the time what the rules were. And I remember my mum had always said to me, if the police stop you, just do whatever they say.
Yeah.
Because essentially, you don't want to get beaten up or worse, killed or stepped on by these police officers. So you're growing up, and that conversation is a conversation that so many black parents will have with their kids continuously. That is a story for most black British kids.
So if asked to describe the police, what would you say?
I'd say that from my treatment of them and how they don't serve and protect my community, I hate them.
So do you... I mean, look, just hold that there a minute. I hate them. Does that mean... How old's your son?
My son is almost 2 years old.
So do you now... The circle of life continues. You tell him to hate the police and grow up the same way?
My mum and dad never told me to hate the police. The way the police treat black men is what makes me have that feeling towards them. And it's funny that now, 37 years later, the conversation my mum had with me, I will have to have with my son. That's how little has changed.
I think, for me, you know, the problem is that's fundamentally and completely wrong. And if black boys are targeted, black girls, it's fundamentally wrong. But I'm also sat here thinking that 23%, right, of stop and searches result in thousands of weapons being taken off our streets. And there's no doubt there are massive, massive problems with weapons in the United Kingdom. This is quite interesting. I've got some public support facts. Met Police, the Public Attitude Survey tracks the views of the public on stop and search. Recently, 83% agree that police should use that power, and 78% are confident in their fair use of it. You wonder how many of those are black, with the greatest of respect, right?
Yeah, and I think the issue here, I don't think necessarily... You can make a case that stop and search, the way it's done, does have an impact on people's sort of self-esteem, and it's humiliating and stuff. But it does work, because 1 in 4 for police statistics in terms of how, you know, successful they are in prosecuting crime is a very, very high hit rate. 1 in 4. My issue here is not the actual stop and search and the result it's getting, which is actually quite promising, which is why I suspect the public are so positive about it. My issue is with the public's trust and community's trust in the police force. You know, Tony Sewell's race report, one of the recommendations he had for the government was that the areas should be policed by people that live within those communities, so that the police force actually look like the communities. Because I would suspect that if you were being stopped and searched by a black officer or by someone who lived in your community and you felt more comfortable, you wouldn't feel like it was a humiliating experience. You would think this is routine to keep more weapons off the streets that could hurt you as a black man. Because you have to remember that most victims of these sorts of crimes are people within those communities, within those ethnic communities as well. And
I just think that's
just not
a dream.
enough trust. But there's not enough trust in the police force. That's the thing. Because if you knew why he was doing it, if you didn't think a police officer was searching you because he fundamentally hated you, if he looked at you and you thought, if he looked like you and you thought, actually, he probably doesn't hate me, that might change your attitude on it.
But why did they put the handcuffs on that young boy so tight that his wrists were bleeding?
Yeah.
And what about when they took the Olympian out of her car?
Yeah.
Why? Why do
Precisely.
that to... Why? Why behave that way? They need retraining in how to stop and search, and that's the problem.
I think it's quite clear there is a racial bias from the police when it comes to stop and searching young black men. I'm 7 times more likely to be stopped.
That's worldwide, with all the police.
7 times more likely as a black man. That's just absolutely appalling. And
Exactly.
I disagree with you, Esther, on the point that, you think that 23% is a good success rate. I think any company that was only successful 23% of the time...
I get that, and we have to avoid... The police need retraining. They shouldn't be stopping black kids. But you have to accept, Nicola, that 4,500 weapons off the streets of the United Kingdom, or London, is an important figure. That doesn't justify in any way, does it?
No, but they'll be back again in a week. So there you go.
That's a good point, because we need to be rebuilding trust between the police and different marginalised communities. I think that, for 77% of those, not arrests, but stop and search to be failures, what effect is that going to have on a young person, particularly a young black man going forward?
How would you get knives off the streets, then?
Well, I'd improve intelligence within communities, as Esther suggested, have real police officers working with communities to understand what the risk factors are, and also raise the bar on what warrants a stop and search.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to stop or help reduce the amount of weapons on the streets. But often the police officers stopping young black men and saying, we think you smell of marijuana. That's why we're now going to do the search. Well, go down to Chelsea on a Friday night and go to the rich white guys and say to them, we think you smell of cocaine. You're going to find it there.
Listen, absolutely salient point. Just give that figure you gave to me privately. How many members of the police force, men and women, are black?
Oh,
7%.
I mean, that's just ridiculous.
The black population in the UK is like, what, 4%? Still higher than...
She's never going to agree with
I'm just saying. Look, we can
You two could argue all night. Right, we're moving on. Coming up now, he's the bad boy of boxing, fresh from a knockout victory, and claims he's ready to retire. But he's also courted controversy. So, Tyson Fury, hero or villain? That is next. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV. We're coming back in 3. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Now, this weekend, Tyson Fury has been celebrating his knockout victory over Dillian Whyte, and he says he's now ready to retire. But his fans are calling for him to keep on boxing, and there's even a reported £100 million offer to stay in the ring. But Tyson is a controversial character. He's had to apologise for homophobic and sexist comments he's made in the past. So, should he be celebrated as a hero?
I don't agree. I'll say straight out, I don't agree with a lot of what he said. But this is what this TV station is all about. You have to accept, even if you would spend your lifetime disagreeing with what the person in front of you says, that people are entitled to their opinion. And, you know, to a lot of people, 94,000 people certainly at Wembley on Saturday night, he's a hero. He's talked about mental health, he's talked about alcoholism. He's brought up 6, possibly 7 children. So he would argue that he's entitled to his opinion. Now, we live in a world, Piers will say this, where, you know, if you don't agree with what the council culture say, then you're history. I don't agree with what he says, but I agree absolutely that he has a right to an opinion. Perhaps the most important thing I want to say to all of you is, and you agree with me, don't you, on this? When I see that man in the ring, right, I don't mean to be rude, right, every person with a dad bod, not old chisel boy there, me, just thinks, I could achieve anything looking like... He looks like me and he's the world champion.
He's absolutely brilliant when you look at him. I mean, you think it's all flying around as his bottom. And he's like, where's the six-pack? Where is it? You know, you expect to touch him and he's like metal. But no. But he's such an interesting character. I don't agree with what he said, but the thing is, with everybody, if you don't like him or you don't agree with him, switch him off. Next.
Yeah, absolutely. He did say some awful things. Homophobic, racist, anti-Semitic stuff.
Anti-Semitic, that I do not like him. Yeah. That's it.
That's where I draw the line.
That's where you draw the line.
But it's interesting where you draw the line. But none of us agree with what he said, but we are in a world where... I know those were serious things. Yeah. You have to accept that people are right to have an opinion.
They are, but I don't know if everyone's got a right to have their opinion aired on such a massive platform, because it could be very damaging to certain communities. Look, he is a sporting hero. He got these things wrong. But when it was pointed out to him that what he said was offensive, I think we could all take a leaf out of his book and say that he held his hands up and said, do you know what? I'm going to do better and learn from this. I think there's often a lot of classism in the media, in that we expect all people to have this kind of middle-class media-trained mentality and know what the right and wrong thing is to say. And maybe Tyson hasn't had that. But I hope he's got good people next to him saying to him, maybe think twice.
Can I just jump in really quickly? But that's, I think, what makes him popular, because he is real, because he does make mistakes, because he resonates with people. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but the thing is he... Because one of the things that I worry about is he apologising because it's unpopular, for instance? And the reason why I say this is because, actually, a lot of the things he said, his views, which I don't particularly agree with, but they are reflective of a lot of people's views that would typically fall in very religious ethnic minority communities. So, for instance, I had friends whose family members were from South Asia, and they wouldn't allow her to go to her friend's birthday party because the friend had 2 fathers, right? And this is not uncommon to see these sorts of views in these communities. This is why I say you can't cancel people like Tyson Fury for having views that you don't agree with, because actually you end up cancelling people that the left typically champion, because they don't want to be comfortable with actually these people that are supposedly oppressed, that we are supposed to be the defending, and they have a hard time in society. Actually, they often have views that would be on the other end of the spectrum that I completely disagree with. And we just have to let people make that evolution themselves if they want to, because we're all entitled to opinions.
I think Tyson Fury... fantastic sportsman. They're going to make a film about him one day. His story is incredible. But we have to separate the sportsman from his personal life, you know? End of the day, this guy's not a politician. He's not leading the country. He said stuff none of us agree with, of course. But to cancel him? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a sportsman, as a boxer, he's one of the best this country's ever produced. And we should get behind him for the sportsman side of things. But,
like I said, he seems like a great character. He really does. But if I'd have known he'd have said something anti-Semitic, that would have been it.
In a shocking moment, I actually agree with Nicola. The problem is, he's a role model to thousands, isn't he? And that's where... But, Nicola, at the same time, he came out and he put his hands up and he said, I don't agree with that, so... That's why JJ's saying, God, look at me being all nice. That's why he should be adored for what he's sportsman. But the rest of it, I think, is...
I think it's good to challenge him rather than cancel him. You know, have a conversation with him and say, why did you think those things? Well, my religious background told me X, Y, Z, and challenge those religious beliefs. Challenge.
Is he religious?
He is,
He's a Catholic.
Deeply, deeply
How would we feel, say, if a Frank Lampard, squeaky clean, no, don't say Andy Murray, because never mind. What would happen if a Frank Lampard came out with that? Would we be saying, you know, he's a man of the people?
I think he'd be getting cancelled if Frank Lampard said it, because we're not used to Frank Lampard saying this kind of thing. You know?
Right.
But he's a presenter as well. He's media trained, so we would expect, I think, a higher level of awareness.
But then maybe
someone like
Tyson
Frank
Fury, not being media trained and not coming from that London-centric bubble we talk about every day, is normal and makes mistakes like people do.
Yeah, he's a good old Northwesterner.
She's off again.
I mean, yeah, but moving on to our next story. When it opened in 1955, Disneyland was called the happiest place on Earth. But now, has it become the wokest place on Earth? It's dropped the traditional greeting of ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and it's swapped it for the gender-neutral dreamers instead. And it's not just the parks. If you want to show your kids classics like The Jungle Book, they now come with a content advisory notice. If that wasn't woke enough, Disney has now announced that 50%, half of its characters, will come from underrepresented groups by next year. So, Sharon, has wokeness broken the Disney magic?
Totally. It's taken away the innocence. And you think about the movies that they're on about. Dumbo, Swiss Family Robinson, Peter Pan. Now, what's Peter Pan done?
Worn tights.
But I mean, it's like, it just goes too far. For me, it's just too much. And when you come in to Disneyland, I don't want to be referred to as Hello Dreamer.
Yeah.
I mean, you could...
It's ridiculous.
But for me, the biggest issue is I don't understand this obsession with shoving this ideology, because that's what it is now. It's an ideology. I don't understand this obsession with shoving it down kids' throats. Kids, especially prepubescent kids, don't have any business learning about sexuality or any of these sorts of things. If parents want to teach them these things, fine, they can teach them. But Disney, it's not up to Disney to teach your children. I'm sorry.
I obviously missed the point, because I thought going to Disneyland was about fun and escapism. And for me, what this does, yet again, is speak volumes about how we, whatever your view, want our kids to grow up far too quickly, and we want to ram things, as you said, down their throats. And there surely is a difference between informing and enforcing. And it goes back to that whole thing. You know, people say, well, I think it's very important that I don't think it's important that a 4-year-old finds out about gender neutrality. I think they should go to Disney World and have a nice time.
Buy a pair of ears. Yes.
Exactly. You have a giant lollipop.
Exactly. And have fun.
I'm all for the inclusivity part. I think helping underrepresented groups, I think that's a good thing. We can agree on that much at least. But this dreamers thing is what gets me. That is what gets me. Yeah, just say boys and girls, little ones, Mr. and Mrs., whatever, because in trying to include everyone, they're excluding the majority of people who are going to be male or female. So I think that's a bit bonkers. And then they're going to the kiss, the fairy tale kiss, Sleeping Beauty gets woken up by the prince. That's going to have a warning on because she wasn't given consent. She didn't give consent to...
She was asleep.
She was asleep.
She was asleep. Can you imagine? I'm sorry about the film, but I need to wake you up a minute so you can sign a consent form before I snog you.
But she won't even wake up, because she only wakes up with the kiss.
Yeah.
So what exactly was she supposed to do?
We've got talking mice, flying elephants and dancing dogs, but kissing a princess is a step too far.
Wow. To wake her up.
To wake her up.
Yeah.
Disney have said they're going to have 50% characters, minorities, and people from the LGBTIQA+ community. That still means 50% straight white men, so you're going to be fine. And at the end of the day, we were all happy...
How did I get blamed for this?
We were all happy with Ariel being 50% human and 50% fish. So I think we can probably...
That's actually a really good point, to be fair,
I think we can deal with having gay characters. And look, I don't think that...
No, but it's not about gay characters, it's about to our children. Shouldn't they just go and enjoy it for what it is?
I want to know what you're saying, come on.
No, but don't children, when they watch... I never, when I watched Disney films as a kid, I wasn't suddenly aware of my sexuality because I saw Prince Charming kiss Snow White. I don't think that kids will suddenly be aware of their homosexuality if they see 2 male characters or 2 female characters kissing. I think we, in this conversation, are presuming the over-sexualisation of children, when in fact they're just seeing 2 dads having a kiss, which is what they'll see in real life anyway.
But Nicola, do you not see how this is prejudiced against people of a particular background, particular religious community, for instance, that want to raise their kids without that influence. You're effectively shoving it down their throats. You say there's nothing wrong with it, but there's also the argument it's not necessary. So why don't you stick to the side of caution and just say, actually, it's not necessary? And if you want to teach your kid about that, if your kid has two uncles that love each other, take them to their house.
But Disney's not a religious corporation. Disney's a global brand.
And Esther, if they're going to show a man and a woman kissing in a Disney film, they should be able to show a man and a woman kissing. Because that is normal. That happens in the world every day. So you cannot just say, oh, actually, yes, we're going to show men and women kissing, just heterosexual relationships. That doesn't make sense.
No, but I don't think anyone is speaking up for parents that don't want to raise their kids with that influence.
Well, then they don't have to
We're talking about babies. We're talking... They're putting a warning on some of their movies. Nobody under 6 can watch this. I mean, that's insane.
It just seems a bit miserable, to be honest.
Do you think so?
What age do you... But I must be getting old, because I understand where you're coming from. Of course, it's symptomatic of the world, and that's quite right. But it almost seems to be like we're saying to kids... I think kids grow up far too quickly. I think kids should be kids, don't you?
Yep.
I completely agree with you there. But coming up, telling co-workers they look young apparently isn't a nice compliment. It's an offensive microaggression. We'll be discussing that soon. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV.
surgery, the nose job is being snubbed. Instead, non-surgical treatments like filler and Botox are in favour, with more than half of people seeing those as no different to getting a haircut or a manicure. Now, supermodel Bella Hadid has also said that she regrets having her nose done when she was just 14. So, with rhinoplasty surgeries falling by nearly a third last year, why are we all turning our noses up at nose jobs? Sharon, what do you think?
Well, if you don't like anything about your appearance and you have the wherewithal to go and change it and money, then do it. I mean, it's your body. You can do what you want with it. But I think, like Bella Hadid having her nose done at 14, I mean, is very, very irresponsible because your face hasn't finished growing, and she just could have had, I bet she's had more than one, because your face changes as you get older. So that's ridiculous. But if you could change your nose a lot by having fillers, then why not? It's easier, because nose jobs are painful.
Yeah, it's far less invasive, isn't it? Which is probably why I presume they're becoming more popular, because people don't want to go under the knife. It's like a 6-week recovery period. I had that when I broke my nose and was offered a nose job, but I turned it down.
Why?
Whether or not that was a good idea, I don't know.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that.
No,
Are you against cosmetic surgery?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I just went in to have a broken septum. I broke it when I fell over dancing. But they offered me a nose job, and I did think about it, but no, I opted not to. It's part of my personality and the way that I look. But I think it's bad that women as young as 14
it's ridiculous.
are feeling
it's
pressured to do it.
absolutely ridiculous. And the thing is, you know, your eyes go black. You're in terrible pain. It's not a fun operation.
Yeah, and the surgeon that I spoke to, because I was an actress at the time, he said, oh, you know, if I do this to your nose, you're going to get all the leading roles. He tried to really drag me into doing it. And I initially said yes, and I went for a drink with a friend of mine. He said, don't do that. It's who you are. You've got a nose like Davina McCall, he said. It's like Jennifer Grey, isn't it, from Dirty Dancing?
Ruined her career.
Yeah, because she had a nose job after finishing the film, and no one recognised her anymore.
That's right. It totally destroyed her career.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a very pronounced nose, personally. My nose is like a button. My dad always tells me your nose is like a button. So I have thought about it. But I just think, and I'm not against cosmetic surgery at all. I just think the reason why this is actually this nose filler thing is more popular here, but actually in the East, like Asia and parts of the Middle East, traditional rhinoplasties are very, very, very popular. So I think it's more of a cultural attitude than anything, because most people here don't really... there's not as much appetite for it here.
Isn't that kind of a westernised beauty standard, though?
Yeah, but I just think it's more popular in other parts of the world. The idea of beauty and facial symmetry is just different, I guess.
But here, I think they go more for the boobs.
Yeah.
Really?
Don't you
Everyone
think?
loves
And the lips.
boobs.
I think it's changing now.
We haven't said a word.
Well, I mean,
JJ?
I only have one thing to say. The sad news is, apart from Tyson Fury's dad bod winning the thing, that as you get older, your nose and your ears grow. So I might have to consider surgery on all of it, to be perfectly honest.
So you might as well just do your boobs, because
I haven't got any
everyone
boobs.
loves boobs.
Not yet.
Sharon, you had a few procedures when you were younger.
Yes.
Would you do that again now with other options like filler?
I just had a whole face done 7 months ago, and it was the most... As you get older, believe me, it gets worse, the pain. It was excruciatingly painful.
So
See,
why?
I'm holding my nose on so it doesn't fall off.
So why do you have these procedures done then?
I do it for myself. My husband doesn't like it, and my kids really, really hate it. I do it for my own ego.
Okay.
It's very honest, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think people should be able to make that decision themselves.
Yeah, I don't. You say it's for your own ego. I don't think there's anything selfish in it. But we ultimately live in a society and a world where women are pressured to look a certain way, and even after a certain age, you know, we're told that we cannot age. It's impossible for women.
So why is it always focused on women? Would you have surgery?
No.
Not at all.
No. Would
Brilliant.
you?
Well, that was this face when we were in America. Yes, I've had Botox. Yeah, look at me looking shocked. No, it's true. I mean, but then do this, and it's look honestly. But this, look, both of us look shocked. Look.
Yeah.
It is, but it is in this business as well, and television. But there is pressure.
There's so much.
There is pressure, a lot of pressure on women. I give you that, but there's a lot of pressure as well on men. There is in this business. I think that's a perfectly fair thing.
68% of people said that someone within their friendship group had a cosmetic procedure done, and I totally get that. And I have only found out recently that there's loads of friends in my friendship group who are all in their early 30s who've had work done. I never knew about it, but they feel like they can talk about it now.
All right, what do you think about the big bums?
Oh, God, I don't want to sit on that.
Oh.
It might burst. Mine's big enough already, Sharon.
Well, the BBL tumor booties. Yeah. The BBL tumor booties. It looks like a giant tumor, like your bum is pregnant.
But what?
Don't ask me about big bottoms. I want to move on. What are you about to say? Come on.
No, I was going to ask you about men and surgery and why it's not such a thing for us then. But you think there is some pressure, but not as much on women?
Not as much as women, no. No, not at all. I think there is pressure on women to have surgery. I think society is all about a lot about how women look. But can I move on now before we talk about big bottoms?
Let's go.
Right. Short and sharp debates are next from our panel. It's time, my friends, for small talk. Hey, how about that's quite good, isn't it? Esther, you've got the first one, and this is about breaking news earlier.
Yes, Elon Musk has just bought Twitter for £34.6 billion. Now, discussions over the deal started last week. I don't know if any of you saw the commotion on Twitter. I was thoroughly enjoying it. But now, the company, the 16-year-old company, has gone private. And what I'm hoping for, I don't know about the rest of you, is that he brings Trump back. Because that man, not on Twitter, makes Twitter so boring. And he just controls the news cycle with just a single tweet. And I'm hoping he brings him back. But what do you guys think?
I'm terrified if Trump comes back. That man should not be allowed near 140 characters.
Oh,
no
he doesn't
way.
need that much.
No.
I don't understand what anybody's talking about, to be honest. I'm not on anything like that. I'm not on anything like that.
Really?
Honestly.
You're
no.
not on Twitter?
No.
But, OK, what do you think about a billionaire having this much power, though, being able to buy this massive
Well, again,
platform?
it's going to sound particularly shallow. I look at him and I wonder, where does he get all that money? How did he make his money? Electric cars that drive themselves?
He's a genius.
I know.
He's an
He's a
absolute genius. But I think he's a pretty good guy. I do, Dan.
Have you
I
met
think
him?
he's got... I have, very briefly, I mean, in a room full of people, you know, meet and greet. But I think that he is a good guy, and I think he will do well. But I absolutely agree. The guy that owns Amazon, I think, has
Jeff
a
Bezos.
complete monopoly, and I think it gets very, very dangerous for people like that. They have too much power.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he's quite a free speech champion, but then he's going to own, essentially, a platform that allows everyone else to have their own free speech. I wonder if he changed his mind further down the line, if our free speech would actually be in jeopardy.
Nicola, you've got the next one?
I do. Workshy Whitehall. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg has threatened to axe the roles of civil servants who continue to work from home in a bid to force Workshy Whitehall staff to return to the office. Did you see this? He recently left passive-aggressive notes on desks saying, "Sorry you were out when I visited." How rude. Now, is it fair to say that Whitehall get to stay at home while so many have to go into their office? Look, personally, I think if people are being productive, let them have a flexible work life. I think it's good to spend some time in the office. It's good to spend some time at home. But I get it. I get it for people like my parents. They work in a factory. They couldn't possibly work from home all day. So they might begrudge people who get to have that flexible amount of working. But I think if productivity's up, no problem.
Civil servants are lazy anyway. They don't do any work, so they can do just as little work from home as they can in the office.
There's probably too many of them anyway, isn't there? I think your point's relevant. What about people who can't work from home? But I think you have to then assume that people are going to do their job, whether it's... I have a friend who has a business, and during the pandemic, he wrote to his employees and said, what would you prefer to do when it's over? And they overwhelmingly said, we don't want to come back to work.
Right.
And his productivity was up 13%.
It's also going to save the taxpayer money as well, because we don't have to... Surely they can downsize the offices that are going to cost us
That's
millions.
the whole thing. So many people have just closed their offices forever, and everybody just works from home. Maybe they'll meet twice a week for a board meeting somewhere, but then people just rent spaces for that.
OK, I've got the next one, and I absolutely promise you have no idea what this means. Staff at the Historic Royal Palace's charity have been told that saying you look so young to female colleagues is microaggression. The charity is encouraging its employees not to say it, as it apparently can undermine your colleagues' authority. So, being old-fashioned, what does that mean? Somebody help me out.
Microaggression.
Well, so what if I said to you, how old are you? That's wrong, right?
That's not wrong. You know what? Actually, I encourage everyone. This is a public service announcement. announcement. I encourage everyone to say, Esther, you look young, because black don't crack, and I intend on keeping it that way. Okay? I'm sorry, that is the ultimate compliment. No one spends money looking good, keeping slim, wearing makeup to be told you look old and haggard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the thing is, so many times people will give each other compliments and they'll say, well, you know, you look so young. And you go, well, you've never met me before.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So what did I look like before?
Yeah, like, what did I look like a year ago?
Yeah.
But I don't know about all of that. I mean, it's fine. You're a bubba. I mean, you look at your face, you're just a little bubba. So it's like you've got years yet before you have to worry about that.
But we know, as women particularly, sorry guys, what it's like to have a backhanded compliment. A compliment where a guy says something about you, but you think, was that... You have to second-guess yourself, say, was he being kind or was he actually putting me down?
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Yeah, all the time.
I don't think that. I'm a free bird.
Yeah, you look good today for a change.
Wow.
Yeah, listen, I think these women who are complaining about it need to have tougher skin. I'm sorry. If someone's saying to you, you look young, just take it. Take the compliment, say thank you, and keep on walking.
I'm grateful for any compliment, to be honest.
Me too.
Yeah. I feel like we've sat here tonight with 3 kids. Do you know what I mean? The older people at this end, you know. Bubba.
Right, I've got the last one.
Go on, then.
Jeremy. Brooklyn Beckham has shown off his new wedding ring after marrying the heiress Nicola Peltz. It's rather blingy, OK? Very, very blingy. It's got a row of diamonds. Oh. There it is.
Oh, gorgeous.
So, should men wear wedding rings? I don't wear mine, only because...
Shame on you.
Only because I've got... broken knuckles and they swell if I put the ring on.
Yeah.
But, Jeremy, you've had 3 or 4 of these now.
Wow.
So,
Wow. This is the man who had to come back from his holiday to do the show tonight. Anyway, yeah, very proud to wear this ring, actually. And also, I'm worrying about tonight because we're going to agree on this as well. Why shouldn't a man wear a ring if a woman wears a ring?
Hell no.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Who do you expect to pay for it?
Oh, here we go. I know what's happening.
No, I'm sorry. Okay. I am the woman. I need to wear the blingy engagement ring. Why does a man need an engagement ring? Am I supposed to go on my knee?
Not about an engagement ring, but why, if I'm married, would I not have a wedding ring as well as my wife?
Because I have to pay more, double. And quite frankly, I would rather boil rice one by one than go on my knee, propose to a man and buy a second ring that's blingy. No, the bling is my job.
I don't think they should have blingy, but you want your husband to have... It's a commitment.
He can have one. I'll pay for the one.
Well, that's what we're saying. That's one.
We're not talking about the big...
He has 2 on with the bling. He has one normal
But
band.
he's hardly like normal, is he, guys? We've got to wrap soon. What do you want to say?
Look, when my partner proposes, when. If he gets me a nice ring, which I'm sure he will, I think, why not buy him a present to say thank you in return? You know,
give him a kiss.
We're equal. I'll give him a kiss. And
Would you want him very quickly to wear a ring to show his commitment to you?
not to show his commitment, but I'd like him to wear a ring. Yeah, definitely.
Does Ozzy wear a wedding ring?
Too right, he does.
I keep losing mine, and Mrs. Honestly, I keep losing it, and Mrs. Kyle says so. You know, but listen, thank you so much indeed. Well, it was all right, wasn't it, for a first one? Thank you very much indeed. That is all we have for time for tonight. Thanks to all of our panellists, the amazing Sharon Osbourne, Esther Kraku, of course, JJ Nisiobi, and Nicola Thorpe. We'll see you again tomorrow, same place, same time, 9 o'clock. The Talk. Have a great night. See you. Bye-bye.